Morning, guys. January the 12th here in Central Illinois. Thought I'd show you what I'm up to this early morning hour. Working on the automated dump car. I finally fabricated a brass window frame for the front of the cab, and I'm well pleased with how this turned out. All this was, let's see if I can put it down here. All this was freelance. I laid this out, drilled a hole, used my nibbler, cut it out, and then filed it to size. But actually what tickles me is that frame will basically fit in the other hole to my left. But what pleases me even more is I used a chassis knockout die to make this. You drill a hole, you put the die on top of it, and you screw it down, and it pops the metal out the back side. And this is an inch square hole. Well, guess what? It actually worked. Now, the only thing I had to do with this was, I told you in one of the videos, that when that die pushes through, it rolls a little bit of the metal down on the lip. I cleaned off that roll, and this puppy went ahead and dropped. Now, that'd be a lie. It don't drop in there. It will slide in there. There is some friction, and I want some friction. But, yeah, I was really pleased. What I'm really pleased with is the fact that cutting these two holes freehand, that I was as close as I was. So that gives me some degree of satisfaction. Got to make another one of these, and, of course, I got to make another frame. I'm not going to leave it in raw brass. Too much solder on there, even though I could file most of that off and buff it up. I think what I'm going to do is I looked at some real cars, and some of their windows had black. I think it's just the rubber that they use to mount them. But I think what I'll do is I'll make these frames black, and then whatever the face is going to be painted, it's either going to be painted orange or yellow is what I'm looking at right now. But got to make one more of these, got to make another cab, and got to make 3 window frames. It's the window frames that I find irritating. That's a lot of work, a lot of clipping, a lot of filing and fitting and stuff like that. I use this to trim it up with. These are Swiss jeweler shears, and they're very convenient on some things. They don't cut this heavy metal very well. It rolls up a little bit. But for cutting the real thin brass, just like a pair of scissors cutting paper. So the other thing we're going to look at here this morning, besides my coffee cup, is the small series 800 cars that Lionel brought out in O gauge, and then later they became the 2600 series. I've always liked these, and I tried to collect as many of them early on as I could. I think what's really neat is they are, of course, 4-wheel cars, but these cars were later changed to the 2600 series. No difference in them. They are exactly the same bodies. In fact, you can take these bodies and put them on that frame, or vice versa. Now, the only thing different is this frame. They would have had to manufacture a new die for that, because those are 4-wheel trucks, and these are just 2-wheel rascals. But everything is exactly the same. This is an early tank car. Early on, before they put latch couplers on, these were hook couplers. I don't have any hook couplers, and I can't remember if any of them were ever combo couplers as they went from hook to latch. But I've always been kind of I like cattle cars. And they had 3 different cattle cars, and I think there is a 4th and there may be a 5th one variation. And I think the only difference is the color of the guides. This is maroon and orange, and this is pea green and orange, and this is orange and pea green. I mean, it's some real color combinations here. They also made a series of box cars, which I've only got the one. The dump cars. This looks short and stubby, but this dump is exactly the same as this done with the four-wheel car. They will interchange. All that stuff will interchange. Their four-wheel gondolas. Everything is the same here. The only thing that Lionel didn't make in the four-wheel series, which they did in the double truck series, was a spotlight and a crane car. Everything else remained the same. The hopper cars, the gondolas, the flat cars with the lumber load. There were a whole series of tank cars, some of which I've got, some of which I don't. And these are some that I redid myself. They had I think these are 804s. I can't tell. Yeah, 804s. They had 804s that had no decal on them, and then they had them with a decal. This right here is an original, but this is the double truck series. And this one here is one that I restored. And what I found out early on when I was doing, actually it's not restored, it's repaint. When I started repainting these, what I found out is there was an outfit that made paint for scale trains called Floor Quill. They don't make it anymore. Or if they do, the formulas have been totally changed. But I found out that they had a color called antique pewter. And that antique pewter was a dead-on match for Lionel's silver. And so that's what I always used, was their antique silver. The other stuff that I used, since I worked with a company that we delivered car parts to General Motors, and I spent a lot of time in the body shop, I talked some of the body men into matching colors for me on the toy train paint, and I used DuPont acrylic lacquer, which is no longer used anymore. That stuff was absolutely fantastic. Here's a caboose over here that I had. The color was fabricated in one of the shops. I can't tell you which one, but this is an original. These two here are all originals. And this red is absolutely spot on. The inserts, believe it or not, the inserts I used what was called almond white, which is used on ice boxes. You can buy a can of that stuff. It's a dead-on mix to the white that Lionel used on their windows. Really worked nice. Now, these are not rubber stamps. Those are not decals. They're transfers. A gal by the name of Jill Bennett, I think was her name, used to make transfers. These things are fantastic. They're better than rubber stamping. And it comes on a wax piece of paper. I used a wood stylus. In my case, the wood stylus was a wooden clothespin. And you transfer that from the paper to the paint, and it don't come off. So I used to like to do this kind of stuff. Unfortunately, you can't buy the type of paint that I bought to do this back in the day. They just don't make it. And DuPont acrylic lacquer was extremely forgiving. If I spray painted this, 15 minutes later, it would be hard. Well, let's say, for instance, I found a little dust spot right here, but you'll find them. I had some super, super, super fine sandpaper. I would sand that down, rub it out, and it was ready to go. You would not even know it was there. You can't do that with Rust-Oleum. It don't work that way. It's a real shame to have lost that quality of paint. I don't know where to find it. I don't even know if it's found anymore. But what I liked about the 800 series cars is that they later on changed them to a 2600 series, and at that point you started pulling this stuff with Lionel's small die-cast locomotives. I think that's a 1666. But what I liked is with the four-wheel trucks, they look absolutely perfect. They make a great train. They're perfect in size. Here again, I like my cattle cars. That's the burnt orange, and that's the red and gray. And they've made a whole bunch of box cars. This one happens to be the, this is cream and maroon, but they made one in Tuscan, and they made them with rubber stamps. I got a whole bunch of them that are rubber stamped. Some indicating automatic couplers, others just indicating that they are that they were manual couplers. The hopper car is one of my favorites. It's the black one here. I always thought this was rather sharp, black and rubber stamped. Very same as this, and of course it's the same as this one right here. They just changed them around, added a few things, cheapened them up in some ways, and made them more detailed in others. So I also like their little their lumber cars are nice, but this makes a nice little train. And pulling it all is the 257. And I'll guarantee you, if this was one of the sheet metal engines, wouldn't begin to pull these cars. Even though they're only four-wheel, they pull hard. So let's just give it a quick run around the track, because that's what I like to do. And we'll see. It's a real snaker, I can tell you that. It looks like a snake going around the track. No effort at all for this little 242. One thing I've never been able to find is a really good four-wheel caboose. And what I mean by good is something an excellent or better. They always seem to be a little bit on the beat up side. That one's not bad, but it's only good to very good at the most. I try to get everything, like I said before, in no less than very good. But it does a nice job running it around the track. And I'll have some more fun when I get this other inner loop done in O gauge, and I can run some of the die cast Lionel steamers in the opposite direction. Well, that's it for the day, guys. We're here. I'll show you what I got to fabricate another cab. This is the cab. We've already seen that. Now, now this is not as neat and clean as what I wanted it. This is made so it fits down just like that, and it will fit on the other end. But this was my first one, and I was marking it out, and then I was cutting it. Well, then it was too much one way, and then it wasn't enough the other. So I'm hoping to make the next cut a whole lot cleaner and a whole lot prettier. But remember this, you should always be like a good doctor with your work. You should be able to bury your mistakes. And that's buried behind there. Nobody will ever see it, but except for me. But I guarantee you that the next cab that I cut out, which I got to cut it out for this end here, it will be a whole lot neater than that. All right, guys, I'll let you go. You have a good Sunday. Going to be cold out there again. We're talking about below zero here next week for Illinois, so we'll see what happens. And a little bit of snow, but hey, it's still January, isn't it? All right, we'll talk with you later. Toodaloo.